For 38-year-old Stephen Mitchell, life seemed perfect. He had built a successful dental practice in Scottsdale, Arizona, married his college sweetheart Jessica, and together they were living what appeared to be the American dream. But on the night of March 15, 2019, during what was supposed to be a romantic weekend getaway at the Desert Palms Resort in Sedona, Stephen's life would end in flames, and the investigation that followed would reveal a twisted plot of betrayal, poison, and cold-blooded murder. Jessica Mitchell had been born Jessica Parker in Phoenix, the daughter of a real estate agent and high school teacher. She grew up in a comfortable middle-class household, always drawn to beauty and aesthetics. After graduating from Arizona State University with a degree in business, she pursued her passion for skincare and cosmetics, eventually landing a position as a senior esthetician at an upscale medical spa in Scottsdale. She was charming, well-liked by clients, and known for her impeccable appearance. Colleagues described her as ambitious, always networking, always looking for the next opportunity. She met Stephen Mitchell at a charity fundraiser in 2009. He was a successful orthodontist, 10 years her senior, financially secure, and looking to settle down. Friends said Stephen was immediately smitten with Jessica's beauty and confidence. They married in 2011 in an elaborate ceremony at the Phoenician Resort, honeymooned in Bora Bora, and settled into a 4,500 square foot home in the exclusive Paradise Valley area. For the first few years, everything seemed fine. Stephen's practice thrived, bringing in over $800,000 annually. Jessica continued working at the medical spa, though she didn't need to financially. She told friends she enjoyed the social aspect, the conversations with wealthy clients, the connection she made. But by 2016, cracks began to show in the marriage. Stephen's long hours at the dental practice meant he was rarely home. Jessica grew increasingly distant, spending more time on her phone, more evenings out with girlfriends. Stephen noticed, but attributed it to the natural ebb and flow of marriage. He trusted his wife completely. He had no idea that Jessica had begun an affair with Ryan Callahan, a personal trainer she'd met at her gym. Ryan was 28, handsome, charismatic, and ambitious. He wanted to open his own luxury fitness studio, but lacked the capital. Jessica saw in him excitement that had faded from her marriage with Stephen. They began meeting secretly, their relationship intensifying throughout 2017 and 2018. Text messages later recovered by police would show Jessica telling Ryan she loved him, that she wanted a future with him, that Stephen was boring and she felt trapped. But divorce wasn't an option Jessica seriously considered, at least not at first. Stephen had insisted on a prenuptial agreement before their marriage, something Jessica had reluctantly signed. If she divorced him, she would walk away with virtually nothing, while Stephen would keep the dental practice, the house, his retirement accounts, everything. Jessica had grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. The luxury cars, the designer clothes, the expensive vacations. She wasn't willing to give that up. And there was another factor. Stephen had taken out a substantial life insurance policy several years earlier, a $1.2 million policy with Jessica as the sole beneficiary. His financial advisor had recommended it to protect Jessica in case anything happened to him, given his income and their mortgage. Stephen had signed the paperwork without hesitation, wanting to ensure his wife would be taken care of. Jessica saw a different kind of opportunity. In January 2019, Jessica began researching methods of untraceable murder. Her search history, later recovered by digital forensics investigators, told a chilling story. She searched for how to make death look like accident, undetectable poisons, house fire investigation procedures, and life insurance payout after accidental death. She researched succinylcholine, a paralytic drug used in medical settings during intubation. In high doses, it causes complete muscle paralysis, including the respiratory muscles, leading to death by asphyxiation. Critically, it metabolizes rapidly in the body, making it extremely difficult to detect in standard toxicology tests. Jessica knew from her work at the medical spa that certain physicians kept controlled substances in their offices. She had befriended Dr. Marcus Chun, an anesthesiologist who occasionally performed procedures at the spa. In February 2019, during a casual conversation, she asked him about emergency medications kept on site. He explained their protocols, including the locked medication cabinet. Jessica paid close attention. On February 28, 2019, security camera footage would later show Jessica entering the medical spa after hours using her keycard. She went directly to the medication storage area. Though the cameras didn't capture the exact moment, investigators believe this is when she stole 2 vials of succinylcholine. The theft wasn't discovered for weeks, and even then, staff assumed it was a clerical error in the inventory system. Jessica now had her weapon, but she needed the perfect setting, the perfect moment. In early March, Jessica suggested to Stephen that they needed a romantic getaway. Their marriage had been strained, she said, and they needed time to reconnect. Stephen was thrilled. He immediately agreed and booked a luxury suite at the Desert Palms Resort in Sedona for the weekend of March 15th. It was a beautiful property, known for its stunning red rock views and intimate atmosphere. Jessica told Ryan Callahan she was going away with her husband one last time, but not to worry. Everything was going to change soon. The weekend started pleasantly enough. Stephen and Jessica checked into their suite on Friday evening, March 15th. They had dinner at the resort's upscale restaurant, walked the grounds, and returned to their room around 10 p.m. Stephen suggested opening a bottle of wine from the resort's collection. Jessica agreed enthusiastically. While Stephen was in the bathroom, Jessica retrieved one of the small vials from her cosmetics bag. Her hand trembled slightly as she opened it. This was the point of no return. She emptied the contents into Stephen's wine glass, swirling it gently to ensure it dissolved completely. When Stephen returned, she handed him his glass with a smile. They toasted to their marriage, to reconnecting, to the future. Stephen drank deeply, complimenting the wine's quality. Jessica barely sipped hers, watching him intently. Within 20 minutes, Stephen began feeling strange. He told Jessica he felt tired, unusually tired, and his limbs felt heavy. He attributed it to the wine and the long week at work. He suggested they go to bed. Jessica agreed, helping him to the bedroom portion of their suite. Stephen collapsed onto the bed, his movements becoming increasingly sluggish. His words began to slur. Jessica watched coldly as the drug took full effect. His breathing became labored, shallow. He tried to speak, but couldn't form words. His eyes showed panic, confusion, the terrible realization that something was very wrong. But he couldn't move, couldn't call for help, couldn't fight back. The paralytic had done its work perfectly. Jessica waited, watching her husband of 8 years suffocate slowly, unable to move a muscle. When his breathing finally stopped completely, when she was certain he was dead, she set the next phase of her plan in motion. She opened her suitcase and removed a small container of lighter fluid she had purchased weeks earlier. She doused the bedding around Stephen's body, creating an accelerant pattern that she hoped would convince investigators the fire started accidentally. She lit several areas simultaneously, and within seconds, flames began spreading across the bed. Jessica grabbed her purse, her phone, and the wine bottle with her glass, being careful to leave Stephen's glass on the nightstand. She opened the sliding glass door to the patio, stepped outside, and began screaming for help. Resort security and other guests came running. Jessica was hysterical, crying that her husband was inside, that there was a fire, that someone needed to help him. The resort's fire suppression system activated, and the local fire department arrived within 8 minutes. But it was too late. Stephen Mitchell was pronounced dead at the scene. The initial investigation seemed straightforward. The fire investigator determined the fire had started on the bed, likely from a dropped cigarette or perhaps a candle, though neither Stephen nor Jessica smoked, and no candle was found. Jessica told police that Stephen had been drinking, had seemed very tired, and must have fallen asleep. She said she had stepped out onto the patio to make a phone call when she smelled smoke. By the time she realized what was happening, flames were everywhere and she couldn't reach him. Her performance was convincing. She was traumatized, grief-stricken, inconsolable. The local Sedona police classified it as an accidental death, a tragic accident during what should have been a romantic weekend. The case appeared closed, but Jessica had made mistakes, small mistakes that would eventually unravel her perfect crime. First, there was the matter of timing. Cell phone records showed that Jessica had called Ryan Callahan at 10:47 p.m., just minutes before the fire started. The call lasted 6 seconds, long enough to say it's done or it's happening. Second, Her social media behavior in the weeks following Stephen's death seemed odd to some of his friends. While she posted appropriate grieving messages publicly, her private communications with Ryan told a different story. She was making plans, talking about the future, asking about property for his dream fitness studio. Third, and most damning, Stephen's mother Helen Mitchell could not accept that her son's death was accidental. Helen knew Stephen well. He was careful, methodical, safety-conscious. The idea that he would fall asleep with something that could start a fire didn't make sense. And there was something about Jessica's behavior at the funeral that troubled her. The grief seemed performative, calculated. In May 2019, 2 months after Stephen's death, Helen Mitchell hired a private investigator named Robert Torres. Torres was a former Phoenix PD detective with 25 years of experience and a reputation for thoroughness. He began by reviewing the official fire investigation report. Something immediately struck him as odd. The fire pattern indicated multiple points of origin, not typical of an accidental fire from a single source. He contacted the fire investigator who had worked the case, raising these concerns. The investigator admitted the pattern had been unusual, but had attributed it to the rapid spread due to synthetic bedding materials. Torres wasn't satisfied. He requested the autopsy report for Stephen Mitchell. The cause of death was listed as smoke inhalation and thermal injuries. Standard toxicology had been performed, showing the presence of alcohol consistent with Jessica's statement that Stephen had been drinking wine. But Torres noticed something crucial. The level of carbon monoxide in Stephen's blood was surprisingly low. In typical fire deaths, victims who die from smoke inhalation show very high carbon monoxide levels. Stephen's levels suggested he had stopped breathing before significant smoke inhalation occurred. This wasn't typical of someone who died in a fire. Torres brought his findings to the Coconino County Sheriff's Office, which had jurisdiction over the case. Detective Sarah Ramirez was assigned to take a fresh look at Stephen Mitchell's death. She began by conducting a deeper investigation into Jessica Mitchell's background and activities. What she discovered was shocking. Jessica's financial situation was not as stable as it appeared. She had accumulated over $80,000 in credit card debt, much of it hidden from Stephen. She had been making large cash withdrawals in the months before Stephen's death. Most significantly, Detective Ramirez discovered the affair with Ryan Callahan. When confronted, Ryan initially denied any relationship with Jessica, but when shown evidence including text messages and motel receipts, he admitted they had been involved. He claimed he had no knowledge of any plan to harm Stephen, that Jessica had told him she was planning to divorce her husband. But the text message sent just minutes before the fire told a different story. Detective Ramirez obtained a warrant for Jessica's complete phone records and computer search history. What she found provided the probable cause needed to make an arrest. The searches for poisons, for making death look accidental, for life insurance policies and fire investigation procedures painted a clear picture of premeditation. In August 2019, Jessica Mitchell was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The arrest made headlines throughout Arizona. The beautiful esthetician who had allegedly poisoned and burned her orthodontist husband for insurance money and a younger lover became a media sensation. Jessica maintained her innocence, claiming the internet searches were from researching plot ideas for a crime novel she was supposedly writing. But prosecutors weren't buying it. The breakthrough in the case came when prosecutors were able to obtain an order to exhume Stephen Mitchell's body for advanced toxicology testing. They specifically requested testing for succinylcholine. While the drug metabolizes quickly, advances in forensic toxicology had made it possible to detect breakdown products of succinylcholine in tissue samples even weeks after death. The results came back positive. Trace amounts of succinic acid and choline, the metabolites of succinylcholine, were found in Stephen's tissue at levels inconsistent with natural occurrence. Dr. Patricia Hernandez, the forensic toxicologist who testified at trial, stated that in her expert opinion, Stephen Mitchell had been administered a lethal dose of succinylcholine prior to the fire. This was murder, not accident. The trial began in March 2021, exactly 2 years after Stephen's death. Prosecutor Michael Zhang laid out a compelling case of premeditated murder motivated by greed and lust. The evidence was overwhelming. The internet search history showing premeditation. The stolen succinylcholine from the medical spa, confirmed through inventory records and Jessica's key card access. the affair with Ryan Callahan, who reluctantly testified about their relationship, and Jessica's complaints about her marriage. The suspicious fire pattern indicating multiple points of origin. The toxicology evidence proving Stephen had been poisoned. The life insurance policy worth $1.2 million. The cell phone records showing Jessica called Ryan minutes before the fire. Jessica's defense attorney argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that the internet searches could be explained, that the presence of succinylcholine metabolites could have other explanations, that the fire pattern analysis was subjective. But the jury didn't believe it. On April 8, 2021, after deliberating for just 6 hours, the jury found Jessica Mitchell guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted. Helen Mitchell wept with relief that justice had finally been served for her son. Jessica showed no emotion, staring straight ahead as the verdict was read. At sentencing, Stephen's mother delivered a powerful victim impact statement describing her son as a kind, generous man who had loved his wife completely and trusted her implicitly. She said Jessica had not only taken Stephen's life, but had robbed his family of a beloved son, his friends of a loyal companion, and his patients of a caring doctor. She asked the judge to impose the maximum sentence. The judge agreed. Jessica Mitchell was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But the case had one final shocking twist. In November 2021, Ryan Callahan was also arrested and charged as an accessory to murder. New evidence had emerged suggesting he had been more involved in the plot than he initially admitted. Text messages recovered from a secondary phone showed he had discussed the insurance money with Jessica and had even helped her research methods. He eventually accepted a plea deal, agreeing to testify against Jessica in exchange for a reduced sentence of 15 years. He admitted that Jessica had told him weeks before the Sedona trip that Stephen would soon be out of the picture, and they would have more than enough money to start their new life together. As of 2024, Jessica Mitchell remains incarcerated at the Arizona State Prison Complex in Perryville. She has filed multiple appeals, all of which have been denied. The insurance company successfully fought the claim and never paid out the $1.2 million policy. The Desert Palms Resort in Sedona added enhanced fire safety systems and now requires additional training for staff in recognizing suspicious circumstances. Stephen Mitchell's dental practice was sold, with proceeds going to his mother and to a scholarship fund established in his name at the University of Arizona College of Dentistry. Ryan Callahan is serving his sentence and will be eligible for parole in 2032. The case serves as a chilling reminder that the person sleeping beside you, the person you trust most in the world, can sometimes be the greatest threat to your life. For Stephen Mitchell, a romantic weekend getaway became his final destination, and the wife he loved became his executioner.